My God, I hate trucks.
Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana says there is a need to further extend martial law in Mindanao. In an interview on The Source, Lorenzana says remnants of terrorist groups in Mindanao need to be completely eradicated. He says authorities are also validating reports of terrorists coming into the country from Indonesia and Malaysia.
There are still terrorists lurking around Mindanao. There's still remnants of Maute. Since they're already small, it's very difficult to look for them. They're still in central Mindanao. Some of them are being protected by the BIFF in central in the Liguas and Mars area. There are still Abu Sayyaf in Hulo and Basilan. Not so much in Tawi-Tawi. Tawi-Tawi is a little bit more peaceful than the two other islands. So that's one. Second is the BOL plebiscite will occur in January 19, and I think we should be there also to protect the plebiscite. And then there is this midterm election. I would follow the recommendation of the Chief of Staff. I would also recommend the extension of martial law for another year. Advance Malacanang has submitted the letter to Congress because the law says that the President should ask Congress for the extension. So we are going to appear before Congress and explain to them why we need another extension of martial law.
Lorenzana assures the public they will not recommend a nationwide martial law. Catch the full interview with the defense chief on The Source later. Heads up beachgoers, more establishments in Boracay now allowed to operate. The tourism department posted today on its Facebook page the updated list of accredited hotels and resorts. All 268 establishments are approved by the Departments of Tourism, Environment, and Interior Local Government. This means the establishments have complied with government regulations and are now authorized to accept bookings and reservations. Boracay reopened to tourists in October following a 6-month cleanup and rehabilitation. A new survey shows a steady increase in the number of Filipinos using the internet. Based on the latest Social Weather Station survey, 4 out of 10, or 41% of Filipino adults are internet users. This is just 1 point higher than the 40% recorded in June. The survey also shows internet use has always been highest in Metro Manila and in urban areas since the poll was first conducted in 2006. SWS says these internet users are mostly women, younger Filipinos, and college graduates. The survey was conducted from September 15 to 23 among 1,500 respondents. When we return, we take you to the so-called modern city outside Metro Manila and find out how it is attracting visitors and investors too. The House of Representatives approves on second reading Speaker Gloria Arroyo's draft federal constitution. A shift to federal form of government is President Duterte's campaign promise. The measure was passed through viva voce or voice voting. Arroyo has conceded that Congress cannot pass charter change under her watch, but she says the lawmakers will bring it as far as they can, hoping that the next Congress will be able to pass it. The 17th Congress ends session in 2019. Arroyo's draft was controversial for a number of reasons. These include the removal of term limits for members of Congress and the lack of an anti-political dynasty provision. It earlier removed the vice president in the succession line for the transition to a federal government, but was later restored after some backlash. Senators, meanwhile, say there is no more time to tackle charter change because of the deliberations for the 2019 proposed budget, which they could target to pass before the year ends.
Building businesses is at the core of Clark's economic growth. It continues to face the challenge of diversifying development outside Metro Manila. Clark Global City, a new development within the Clark Freeport Zone in Pampanga, promises to be the new business hub.
Our biggest challenge is to plan the development so that it addresses the needs of today and of the future. What we wanted is a development that is comparable with the best cities in the world. There are 5 key drivers that we identified. One of the drivers is it has to be transport-oriented. Second is that it has to be iconic with place branding. In the end, the development has to be memorable. It has to be mixed use. We want to offer diversity of uses. It has to be a place where people can live, can work, can socialize. Development, we have open spaces, we have activity areas, sports complex, all these spaces that people need for them to enjoy life in the community. There has to be different offerings here. And last is, in the end, this is a place where people have to live in. It has to be a place that inspires people to develop a community.
The design of Clark Global City is quite ambitious, and this is paying off as it slowly but surely is attracting investors because of its unique features.
So the 10 years really is a quite ambitious plan to build a city of this size. So to put it in perspective, this is a 177-hectare development, mixed use. We call it an aerotropolis, but what it is a city that's using the planning and the lessons that have been learned over the last 10, 20 years in city development to try to make it more forward-thinking. Our first phase was, of course, building a hospital and building some commercial and retail, which is what we're sitting in today. This is part of a retail complex that spans across the first and second floor. Kind of if you think about how Hong Kong is connected, office, retail, mixed-use space, that's very similar to the design here.
Clark Global City primarily offers solutions to Metro Manila's congestion. It makes sure that each development is well planned and sustainable.
Well, if you look at Clark in itself, it's a free port. Being a free port, it offers a lot of advantages. It is very close to major means of transport. You have the airport, you have the SETEX and the rail, and not very far from Clark is the Subic Freeport.
It's also central in the country, which makes it very strategic for employees, so international companies that really are locating in the Philippines because of the quality of talent. This is one of the easiest places to grow your business in terms of quality of talent. And then the third is it is incredibly resilient to natural disasters, which makes your risk of loss of productivity very low. We consider ourselves like the BGC of the North. The big key difference, I would say, is sustainability and connectivity. So our transportation solutions, you can go right now, every 15 minutes there's a free bus service, Clark Global City Bus, throughout our city. It's connected by train, it's connected by highway. You can fly and be on site in 10 minutes. This is one of the fastest growing airports in the entire world. It's grown by 60 or 70% per year. Those are features that you won't get in BGC and you won't get in other regional cities.
This is less dense. We're not going to create densities as high as Makati CBD. Second, we have more open spaces.
Budget Secretary Ben Jokno says President Duterte has approved the additional fuel excise tax next year as recommended by economic managers. In a text message, Jokno says the premise for suspending the additional tax, namely high fuel prices, does not exist. He adds the tax impact will be negligible because of substantially low pump prices. The budget chief explains at its peak, diesel price was 49 pesos and 80 centavos per liter, will be 37 pesos and 76 centavos in January 2019, inclusive of the 2 peso excise tax. For gasoline that reached almost 61 pesos per liter, he says they expect it to cost almost 10 pesos less, inclusive of the 2 peso additional excise tax. Jokno says revenue losses may reach 43.4 billion pesos without the tax, a big amount that is needed to fund the build infrastructure project. He says President Duterte is only implementing the train law, and even if there's a second tranche of the excise tax, fuel prices will be 10 pesos lower than their peak sometime in October. In the meantime, presidential spokesperson Sal Panelo says while the oil excise tax increase is a negligible contributor to inflation, the government still commits to provide financial assistance to the 50% poorest households. We go above and beyond the headlines. Let's speak with Alvin Ang, the director of Ateneo Center for Economic Research. Good evening, Alvin.
Hello, good evening, Ruth, and to all your viewers.
Yes, can you tell us about the possible implications of the higher fuel excise tax for next year?
Well, based on the train law, there is a provision that the only time that the additional taxes will not be imposed if the Dubai crude or where we are basing our prices is averaging $80, and that's not happening already. And so I guess the implications, just like what Secretary Diokno already mentioned, is that the taxes will be imposed because there's no legal basis for not imposing it. On the other hand, the fear that it could increase inflation again, I think historically what they have said is correct. The only thing that is not imputed in their analysis is the possibility of expectations, which played a big role in the train implementation this year.
Yeah, so Alvin, so you don't think this will lead to higher consumer prices? Wala siyang magiging effect na parang domino effect on the prices of basic goods?
Well, theoretically, it should not. However, as I said, what has happened in this round of the first year of the implementation of the train, much of the price increases was really because people expected higher prices, so they started to buy more, consume more, and so there was a supply problem. But most of the inflation increases were actually traced to food supply limitations. So we are addressing that now. So to make sure that this will not create another round of inflation challenges, it must be made sure that supply of basic commodities, particularly rice, would be available.
Okay, so Alvin, what do you think that the government should do to ensure stable consumer prices just in case that happens?